Hello, everyone, and welcome to an all-new episode of Wicked Unscripted, where we have unscripted conversations about some of the most popular reality shows on television. My name is Abigail Adams. I am your host for this podcast. Joining me today, as always, is the lovely Sarah Talks Big Brother. Usually Big Brother, today Traitors. I did that last time. I should get a note in there. But we are here to talk about episode 4 of the Traitors.
Yes.
And we have a lot to talk about. A lot.
Yeah, so this was really good. We got left on the big cliffhanger of who did Parvati poison with her chalice. And you know what? There was a lot of guesses and speculation that it was Ekin-Su. But we find out right off the top of the episode that was Ekin-Su, and I just was waiting for the fallout. I just didn't anticipate the kind of fallout that we would have. Not just that, but then I just gotta say too, because I really want to talk about it in this episode. We could talk about the end, but we thought BB was king of the Twitter streets, but
I know.
Traitors Twitter has been wild. And so there's been so much fallout in the show, outside of the show. I'm here for it.
It's so crazy. And I mean, then it's just wide spanning. Yeah, we'll talk about it later. And I will say too, not only was this episode accidentally masterful, I think, in a way, it naturally became an incredibly dramatic episode, and these are the kinds of things you live for as reality television fans. But I just think every episode we are going to be getting cliffhangers at this point. Every single episode we've gotten so far has been that way. So it's the pattern, and I'm just convinced that that's what we're looking at this point. And I'm not saying that in necessarily a negative way, because I enjoy a cliffhanger if it's done well and done right. But I also kind of just worry that cliffhangers have their purpose, and it's you're not supposed to really overdo them. They're supposed to kind of get you to come back every week. And we
even got one this episode, and we didn't get scenes for next week.
That's what I was saying. I was like, whoa. What?
Yeah. Hello? But it must mean, I love that they did that, because that tells me that is even more of a cliffhanger to me, because that tells me that whatever footage you got, we can't have anything not spoiled. So whatever happens is going to be big enough to where we can't do a scenes for next week without spoiling something.
Yeah, and that to me means that we likely are getting the return of Kate Chastain this week. I don't even know. And the thing is, I think they are probably going to be, that'll be the thing they leave it off with, right? That'll be the cliffhanger, the teaser that we get for next week. So it's come back, because they could have theoretically teased it for this week and then had it at the end. That would have pissed a lot of people off, though. So I almost wonder if that's what's going to happen, because it'll be a little bit more palatable for people rather than having it dangled in their face and then they get another cliffhanger. Yeah, I don't know. I'll be curious to see, but that's my personal prediction.
Well, I mean, hey, what it looks like, and what it looks like to me is and I personally feel that we're going to have the Traitors turning on each other. We saw some seeds. There were some very carefully planned segments in this episode that lead me to believe, and how the episode ended between Phaedra and Parvati, that we are going to see something of that tomorrow night, or when this releases. So it'll be tonight, but in episode 5. I'm excited for this. This is very early in the game for this, but I feel that I'll just say it, Dan and Parvati already talked about, Phaedra's sitting too pretty, which they are correct. No one is looking at Phaedra. Phaedra is very well insulated within the housewives, and she would probably be the last one anybody suspected from the housewives. And that's not good for Dan or Parvati. Also, you have knocked out faithful after faithful after faithful at this point. They keep getting it wrong. And I feel that we are now at a point in the game where they need to feed the faithfuls. And the faithfuls are going to have to get a traitor before they start getting really bloodthirsty. And I feel like this could be if Dan and Parvati could potentially turn this on Phaedra, especially now with the murder of Ekin-Su. There is a way to spin this, and we saw it in this episode, the seeds that were planted throughout. This could be a really great move for Dan and Parvati, knowing that they would get another recruit. Now, who they would recruit or who would be best for them to recruit, I think, would be a non-Bravo, non-gamer. So, a Kevin or just John, or one of the people that, because right now it is gamers versus Bravo.
It would be iconic if they got someone like Peter in there too. First of all,
Peter
just because you get back-to-back bachelors getting recruited on back-to-back seasons.
Yeah.
But then also, I actually think that he could be somebody that people are trusting as a faithful right now, and could really be like a slick pick for the remaining traitors to kind of continue to fly under the radar.
So I also think Kevin would be a great choice here because there is suspicion thrown his way. He's not a top choice to be a traitor, but he would be a easier sell, like a good shield for both Dan and Parvati.
Yes, and before we go forward too, we do want to note that Deontay Wilder has walked away from the game. Just super quickly, you can check out some of the articles. One is on Distractify, the other one is Us Weekly. He talked about how his childhood triggered him, or childhood trauma kind of got triggered while he was in the castle, and he was just kind of not prepared for the emotions that he was going to experience in the game, and just decided to walk away for himself.
I mean, great for him for knowing himself and knowing his, taking care of his mental health. That's really important. I am very surprised by how under the rug this was swept.
Yeah, it was so fast.
So fast. A lot of people missed it. And as somebody who has rewatched the episode, I missed it again. And I knew the spot that it was in and backed up. And it is literally, if you are not tuned in and catching every word Alan is saying, you miss it. It is, I'm very surprised.
It didn't even get its own sentence. It was literally with Deontay walking from the game, Ekin-Su has been poisoned and is waiting to and I was like, wait, we're just gonna skim over it like that?
Skim that over, yeah.
That's my biggest criticism of this is they did that also with Amanda last season, and it's just I just think the player deserves more. They deserve more dignity, even if it is that they have to suddenly walk away, and you don't have to do much. Just I even think Amanda got more than him last year, where I think it was just we wish her all the best. It's couldn't even say that. I don't know. It just felt very I get that we're trying to keep the story going and things were there was already momentum moving a certain way, but I think it was important that Deontay got that recognition a little bit more than he did. Because people were literally in our Discord, people were messaging us on TikTok and Twitter and being like, where is he? Did he not appear in the episode for some is he coming back? It was just a lot of confusion for a lot of people. But the next morning, we did get the poison results. And the first 3 people in the breakfast room, whatever, were Dan, Parvati, and Phaedra. So they got a chance to talk to each other about who was poisoned. Dan said he didn't see it. And obviously, we know Phaedra didn't see it. But Dan was in the room.
What's so funny is Dan was in the room. It happened right behind his head.
At first, I thought he was literally just bullshitting. But when he got into the confessional, he's like, I didn't see it. I was like, Interesting. There's still a piece of me that wonders if that's not the entire truth, but
maybe
because it could be for storyline. Yeah. So I'm just a little skeptical, but what are you gonna do?
But yeah, Phaedra was not Ekin-Su. Oh,
that was so great. Ekin-Su. So memeable. That's going to be memed for years.
So here's the thing is I understand where Phaedra's coming from, where she's like, I voted for her at the last roundtable. They're going to think it's me. But at this point, that's her non-competitive reality gamer side showing, because anyone knows, if we know Dan is a traitor. He's not gonna go into a round table and accuse someone and then kill him that night. Like, he's not gonna do that. He's not gonna start beef with someone and then kill him. Like, because he knows better, because he knows that that's not what you do. And at this point, it's such a thing that you don't do that even the faithfuls aren't going to look at Phaedra in that way because she voted for Ekin-Su. They brought it up like there have been a couple people that voted for her to banish her, trying to accuse her. They by the midway through this episode, you see how many people, like, she probably would have been banished that night. She probably would have been suspect number one just because of how dramatic she was being during the challenge. So, I think Phaedra, I understand her concerns, but I think that it's just very obvious that she's not used to these kinds of games, that they are such a concern to her.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it was an interesting play because Phaedra did vote for Ekin-Su at the last roundtable, but like it wasn't obviously intentional. I just think this is like one of the first dominoes that fell in like the accidental beauty of this episode that really just created such a natural, like I said before, like made this episode so naturally interesting and entertaining, and I lived for it the whole way through.
See what competitive reality can be when you're not throwing in game-changing twists every 3 times an episode. It's incredible.
No,
Just
like
let people be people.
the game-changing twists actually have meaning and value to them. It's that we saw something, and in order to make it a certain way, we have created this twist. And it's like, yes, it does. These twists do have a hopeful intended outcome, but like that's because the outcome isn't supposed to be incredibly specific necessarily. It's supposed to have some broad-reaching opportunities.
Correct.
And I really feel like this show's doing really, really well with adding in these twists in that manner versus shows that shall not be named perhaps on this episode of this podcast. We've mentioned it on, we could mention it again.
So we did get after breakfast, they were told about the let's go to the next challenge. And this challenge was great. This is the funeral walk challenge. They've done this before on Traitors UK. It's just very, very interesting that they're not only playing into like there was a murder, there was a death, but then playing that death into the challenge as well. So you have to, in order to get this money, you have to correctly guess who was murdered. And I love this because there's a social element involved. There was some strategery involved. There was some really funny riddles. But like there was so much shade thrown during this challenge. And I love how at the end, like, they were so dead set, it has to be this person. So I'm excited to get into that.
Yeah, and one of the things that frustrated me the most, though, going right before this challenge, is when Ekin-Su and MJ walked in as two of the last people.
Oh my gosh, I think you're about to say the same thing. We're both on the same page here, I think.
Are we talking about how they couldn't read their own goddamn instructions?
No. Okay, no. But yes. All right. So yes, I get what you're saying, that they knew the
Okay. It was literally, they read their instructions. It said at the bottom, this will not take effect immediately. Like, it was so fucking clear. And I was just like, yeah, so this way they'll think about it and da-da-da-da. And they just literally thought they were just murdering. And then this person's not coming to breakfast. I'm like, when the fuck did you think they were dying? If they're not dying immediately, like it says they're not going to die immediately. Well, no shit, Sherlock. But did you really think that they were going to not come to breakfast next morning? Like, it was so
and
obvious
I'm sorry,
that wasn't going to be
like,
to me.
New Traitors drinking game. Okay. Parvati has this very particular face. I'm going to need her to stop doing. If you're listening to this on the podcast, I'm sorry. But if you're watching on YouTube, you're welcome.
She's done it her entire reality television career. She also does it very similarly to like how Miranda Priestley purses her lips in
But like, why are you making this face, girly, when Ekin-Su walks in? Are you just like trying to scream you're a fucking traitor?
I think she's trying to act. And as they mentioned, which is kind of a little bit of like a segue into this challenge, people did not buy Parvati's acting skills whatsoever. They really did not. They were just like, this is really suspicious, which is not good for her. And she was like, I need to act as best as possible. But one of the things that I thought was a dead giveaway, I understand why she did the arms crossed thing, but that can go both ways. It's not just about looking like you're afraid to be murdered. This isn't about fear. This is defensive. Crossing your arms is a defensive move. And I mean, I guess in a way you could be feeling defensive if you're worried you're being poisoned, but
or you're cold.
Maybe, but nobody else was doing it. And it's just like, it felt very much like she was like trying to be like, I'm sad and upset. And I was like, you're picking the wrong body language.
We talked about this on TikTok Live after the episode. And when I did the rewatch, I watched it again. It still, even hearing that, it still didn't read that way to me. And, I'm very critical of Parvati because I don't feel like she's not good for Dan. It's game here, but I don't.
So you're Big Brother biased then, because I love what she's doing because she's stirring the pot like she always does.
I keep trying to find ways to I think that she did this part well. Like I think that the chalice thing was a little coming on a little strong in the beginning, but when she went to the second room, I mean, I even said in the last podcast that I feel like we had the cameras on her, so it looked a little bit more obvious to us, but in a room full of people minding their own business, I don't think it was as obvious as it looked to us. But when it comes to like those faces, I feel would have been sus as fuck to me. The arms did not. The arms didn't read that way to me, the way they were walking. I feel like her faces, there at the end, even like I was kind of watching and waiting for some more of that. And overall, I feel like she's more obvious at breakfast and Roundtable than she is throughout the day. So I don't feel like it was that bad during the challenge, but the challenge was pretty cool. So they came across these riddles on this funeral walk, this funeral procession. And they have to do these riddles. That first riddle though, can we just talk about the Sandra shade? Because I was living.
I mean, so like, okay, so the question for people who don't remember or didn't see was like, two people were born in the same year, and I feel bad because I'm just gonna say my older sister is their exact age. So I was when they both said 1974, I pissed myself because I was like, oh, Melissa
said 74, and Larsa said I'm 74 too, and Sandra's like, I'm shocked to find out that Larsa is the same age as me. She looks like 10, 15 years older than me.
Girly.
What? First of all,
girly.
Larsa is a lot, okay? But she looks fucking good. She looks good, girl. So that was just Sandra shade for the sake of Sandra shade.
Oh, I mean, it's Sandra is the queen. I mean, that no pun joke, nothing intended. Like literally, she is just the queen at this kind of stuff.
Oh my god,
it's so entertaining. That was so fun.
Dan and Kevin. Who was the other?
I thought it was just those. I think it was only two. Oh, I missed the other one then.
I believe it's Dan. I think it's Dan and Kevin with 84.
Probably.
Or 83. But so they were the other two, but that was hysterical to me, as was the next riddle, which was a choir singing about the two people that Johnny Bananas trusted the most in the house, which shocked me. I probably would have gotten that wrong. I mean, you can make the assumption it's the other two challenge players like the rest of the house did, but that's not what I would have thought, especially since at breakfast, Larsa just announced how close her and Johnny were, but I guess she's already on the carriage at that point. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think also she was more interested. I think she was more interested in Johnny than Johnny was interested in her. I think most of the people read that.
Hey, you know what, girl? Same. Okay. Anyways, yeah, CT's like, no, it ain't me. He shouldn't.
CT was just like this. He literally said, like, this is the first time he saved me. The first time he's literally ever done anything for me.
The first time Bananas has ever done anything for me.
Bananas backpack.
And he
they brought it up last week.
The confessionals were hysterical from CT on this one.
I live for his confessionals. They are gold.
Especially the silent ones where he's just staring into the camera, deadpan, like
Now, you and I were talking earlier. This is going to be like a little bit of like a side note. We've been watching the new Ted show on Peacock as
Oh
well.
my
And I'll
gosh.
just tell you, he actually would be such a fun guest star to have on there. He would fit so
And
perfectly,
he's an actor.
accent and all. Exactly my point. Exactly my point. Get him on the show. Peacock, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But anyways,
Actually, yeah, it is on Peacock. I'm obsessed with Ted, by the way. We were talking about
we
it
were
before.
talking about it. We've been
I just
talking about different things.
I love the movies, but the show is great. If you're a Family Guy fan, you will love it. It's Family Guy live action. That's what it is. It's hilarious.
I have a hot
Anyways,
take on that I think that they should have started Ted as a show as is, and they probably would have had like long-term success with it if they had just run with it like that instead of the movie. But like, I'm not saying the movie's bad at all. I'm just saying like,
oh, I
imagine the
fucking
success
love the
if they had
movie.
opted for the television show first
Yeah.
over the movie or the two movies. Like, I don't know. I might be wrong, but I would be curious to like know in hindsight how that would have worked. I digress. Let's talk about question 3 on the Traitors. Totally different show. But question 3 was like something about, or the riddle was about the people who ran through the Scarecrow challenge that wore red shirts. And there were multiple people wearing other kinds of shirts. There was blue and yellow. And so the people who were wearing red were Phaedra Cherie, excuse me, and Bergie and John. Ekin was pissed when she realized that she was yellow and she wasn't safe, because this was the final question, and this was leaving at least 3 people who would be options to have been poisoned. And those people included Ekin-Su, as well as Parv and MJ. So Ekin-Su looks around, she goes, "I've been murdered, haven't I?" And I was just like, it was so
Meanwhile, the whole
perfectly
carriage is
dramatic.
like, "Oh, it's MJ. MJ's dead. Yeah, of course it's MJ. Of course they kill MJ." And everybody's so dead. It's MJ. Dead set. What bothered me here, and this is what I thought that we were both going to be talking about. What really bothered me here is like how many of these people forgot, or they got it in their heads that the remaining 3 people were the options. Like those were the, out of the 3 options that the people could have killed, it had to have been MJ, because they wouldn't have taken out Ekin-Su. They wouldn't have done this. However, it's completely fucking random. The options for the traitors are everybody but the people with shields in that carriage, but they were treating it as those were the 3 that they had to choose from. So whenever it is revealed that it was Ekin-Su, because they all like unanimously vote it was MJ, with the traitors deciding to vote with the group to not stand out, and they'll go ahead and take the hit on the money so they get found out. Which is the move. That is the move you have to make here.
Yep.
But what kills me is that the logic, especially with wow, what a brain fart.
Peter?
The Bachelor.
Peter.
Peter.
Pilot Pete.
Pilot Pete. He, the way he was talking about it, and I feel like they pigeonholed themselves into these were the only 3 options for the traitors. And so MJ was the only one that made sense out of those 3. So that when it was all found out, that's kind of where they were spiraling. Well, why would you take out Ekin-Su over MJ? MJ must have been the traitor then, because if MJ's not dead, then she's the traitor. And it's not like, it was very frustrating to watch, but I feel like it would be very easy as a viewer to get swept into that logic
Yes.
too.
Yes. Even
Without
under that logic, it's hilarious that they're pegging the wrong person. Like, a literal traitor is sitting next to MJ, and it's like, oh, well, if one of them's a traitor, they're like, it's gotta be, and it's like, no, you're so close. You're so close.
But that's not the way that this challenge worked, honey.
Not quite there. I don't think it was a horrible thing to assume, because I think it was totally fair to wonder if they were the ones that chose that order. I don't know if they were told like who chose them. Obviously they weren't. So let's just scratch that. Obviously they weren't told. And so they made the assumption. And so I think it's interesting though, because like it did leave that option open. And rather than forcing them to actually make that decision, this just continued again to just flow so naturally. Everything was so beautiful about this episode. We also got really deep into the throes of gamers versus Bravo. Like, this
Wait, can we
is
just time out for a second
Oh,
and rewind?
totally.
Let's go back. So, just a sidebar note here. I love Alan. He is
Oh, yes.
fabulous.
One of the best reality television hosts I've ever watched.
For reals. But if Alan looked me dead in the eye and told me to get in a fucking coffin, I don't care. The answer is no. No. And if
Get
he had
in.
closed that lid the way he kicked the lid closed on Ek and Sue.
Sarah literally texted me going, "They did not bury her, right? She
No.
did not go in, right?" And I was like, "No."
And I know that. I logically know that in television that her body got out before they moved the coffin. I logically know that. But the
Exactly.
crazy side of my brain, the part that's irrational, that is, the part that fucks me up on a daily basis,
Yes.
okay, was sitting here needing Alan Cummings to tell me she's okay and that she wasn't put in that because the second he kicked the lid shut on me, shiitake mushrooms, my pants, all over that coffin. No. Fuck no. Fuck no. Absolutely.
There's a lot of people who wouldn't even there's some people who wouldn't even get in that coffin, though.
No,
Like, some people would look at it and be like, "No."
I'm somebody. Wouldn't have happened.
See, I'd get in pretty quickly. I wouldn't have any problem with it. Like, if I was in the coffin and you started tossing dirt on me and I was going down, I'd definitely be like, time out. I want out. But I could get in the coffin. I could lay there. I'd be chill. I'd be good. But I totally understand. I'm not trying to, like, sound superior.
If the coffin didn't have a lid.
Well,
if the coffin didn't have
Oh, I mean, if the coffin had no lid, I would literally that'd be totally easy.
It'd be fine. But the fact that the lid is sitting there primed and ready for Alan to kick it shut on me, it's not happening.
It's just like, no.
Nope.
It added the drama too, because they had to, like, look around the people who
There
were
was
in
drama
there.
in my living room. I know that for damn sure. But, like, I'm having anxiety just thinking about it again. We couldn't just skim past that. But yes, let's talk about the cliques because Janelle clocked it.
So yeah, so Janelle pretty much. I'll add one little, like, side note to what she put out, but this is what she was saying. So, we get this really great confessional from her, breaking down the alliances in the house. Now, there aren't or, like, kind of where the cliques are. She didn't even phrase it as alliances, and I actually really liked that because a lot of it is unspoken alliances rather than, like, we're working together. Like, some people have kind of said, like, "Hey, I got your back if you got mine," but nothing about, like, we are aligned. We have an alliance. Like, nothing to that we know of that is that, like, concrete. So the way Janelle has clocked it is that there is gamers versus Bravo. And then there's kind of, like, some random faithfuls in the middle. And she specifically calls them faithfuls, which I think is really, really interesting. Because she clocks every traitor as part of one of these alliances, whether she knows it or not. So she accidentally really does actually get all faithfuls in that third group.
I truly believe that Janelle suspect Dan and just didn't say shit for the longest time.
I think also because she's so loyal, that is very much who she is, and Dan knows that. Dan's like, Janelle is loyal to a fault. Like, that is when she trusts you and she loves you, and she's not very
trusting.
trusting.
Kind of secretly hoping she'll get recruited.
I totally feel that. So
keeping her mouth shut because if she has a chance to be recruited, Dan would probably recruit her.
Oh, for sure.
For
sure. Well, it would be easy because it'd be another shield for him too.
Yeah.
So
I think another advantage that Dan has with Parvati, though, is I was thinking about this the other day. We know Dan covers these shows. We know he watches it. And we know he's very familiar with Parvati.
Right.
I don't think Parvati knows anything about Dan.
I think she does. I don't think she knows as much. Because she's not oblivious to the reality television world.
I don't think she knows enough to not trust him.
Yes, but I think it might overplay his hand with her because I think he he knows that she can be villainous, but I think he thinks that she can be puppeteered a little bit more than she actually can because she can. The only person that even puppeted her a little bit was Russell Hanson. She pushed back on that shit.
Yeah.
She is not one to take that kind of manipulation. So, like, I think there's
I don't think he
going to
can
be a
manipulate
clash
her by
between
any
those
means.
two.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a clash between those two very, very soon. And I do not know which one would come out on top. The only reason I think that it could be Parvati is because in the previews that we get for the entire season, there is a moment where Parvati and Phaedra say something to each other in the turret that kind of alluded to me that they might be the only traitors left. I can't remember what it is, so I'm not saying like that's definitive. Like I'd have to go back and find the clip, but like I remember hearing it and being like, "Oh, I don't." So that's just my prediction, but I've tried to use these I've tried to use these previews multiple times to try and predict things, and I've gotten close, but I've never gotten anything right this season.
I think I'm okay with not getting any previews from here on out. I like the element of surprise.
I do, but I don't. Like, if they're not gonna give too much away, I still want something.
Here's the thing about me, and I know I've said it in previous podcasts and episodes before and stuff, but I enjoy shows where I don't have spoilers. I enjoy shows where I don't know what's gonna happen. Big Brother, I cover in the live feeds. I literally know everything, but I can say without a shadow of doubt, the only reason I do not watch the live feeds for the spoilers, what drives me to live in the live feeds is my mistrust of production to tell me the true story. Um, and the evidence is there for me to see what their bullshit is. If I'm going to watch an edited show with no live feeds like the Traitors, Survivor, Challenge, I don't want spoilers. I'm okay with not getting scenes from next week. And I'm okay with whatever bullshit production feeds me, even if it's not the real story, because how am I going to know any different? How am I
See,
going to know any different?
and I think that's where you and I'm with you the entire way until we get to that point, because at that point, I think that's where we diverge. Because I'm like, I will still be desperate to find those things where I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, so what can I do? What traitory things can I do?
It's kind of like I go into the mentality of like Big Brother would be me watching a true crime documentary and I'm taking in all the information as factual, right? And the other shows I kind of go into with the same escapism mentality as I would like Harry Potter. Is Hogwarts real?
Mm,
No.
no.
Do I think I should get a letter? Yes. Do I, like
You're gonna
it
make me spit out my water.
I'm just saying, like, I go into it where, like, it's that, like, I'm living in this world
Yeah.
right now. And I enjoy that level of escapism. I go into Big Brother where, like, I'm reporting the news. I want to find out the facts. And so it's two different, very different mentalities for me. Um,
I love it.
so it's interesting. I'm okay. I'm okay if they don't want to give me sneak peeks for the next week. I really met with wish that they I really wish that they would bring back we were just talking about what a blooper reel would look like for us, and let me just
Now we have
say
like 5 pieces of things
I
we
was
could
about to say be a multi-parter, okay? But I really feel that, it would be cool if we had like how they did at the end of episode 1, we got, like, a behind the scenes
Yeah.
like, I wish that would be really cool, kinda like what they did for, this is but on Game of Thrones. Every episode of Game of Thrones, we sit down and watch Game of Thrones, and then after Game of Thrones, you got, like, the behind the scenes kinda stuff or cut clips or, things like that, and that would be pretty cool, but
Well, they've done it every week, but I found it's really kind of fallen short. It feels way
yeah.
too overproduced for me. Like, so if you guys I really encourage I think I've mentioned it every time I've talked about the postmortem stuff. Please, 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 with a capital PLEASE. Go to the Traitors Canada TikTok page. TikTok page. You don't even like it doesn't matter where you live. You can access it. And for their past season, there will be spoilers. So if you don't want the new season spoiled, obviously don't do that. Don't do that if you don't want the season spoiled, actually. but if you go there, you can watch what I was hoping postmortem was going to be, where they were still sitting in the chair, like right after they read that they had been murdered. And then obviously they bring the banished person and they do the same exact thing. And they ask them just general questions in the sense where it was like, it felt like they were still in the confessional and it felt much more raw. But even like I'd say even a step like back from that, where it just felt like they were interacting with producers rather than being interviewed for the show. And then they got to find out who the traitors are. And I'm mad that we don't get that in this, because that's the fun part. Because it was literally like somebody would be like, they'd peg one traitor and then they'd be like, never mind, I'm gonna say it's actually this person, and then they'd open it and they'd like have this whole dramatic reaction, and it was so much fun. So I'm just saying postmortem's a big miss for me right now, and I really hope they can look at what Traitors Canada did and like kind of do something similar, because I don't know if they saw what Traitors Canada did and were like, we want to change it, or if they didn't see it and did their own thing. But that's just my personal preference. I could rant about that, I think, for hours.
No, that's what I was trying to get, like, the first one after the first episode. I feel like that was it was a little overproduced, but that one I enjoyed. The
It
other
wasn't
ones I
bad.
felt like were just kind of
Meh.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like the first one, the one after the very first episode, I
Yeah.
felt like what I was expecting for every episode. And they haven't been delivering that for me.
This last one was particularly a dud. I was like, why did I waste 8 minutes on this? I didn't even mean to be mean, but it was rehashing literally everything we already knew. There was
Right.
almost nothing we didn't know. It was just
Right.
kind of people being a little cocky. You know, I mean, it's nice to hear more raw, unproduced thoughts, even though it was fairly produced. I don't know.
My other note I had for this was this is another example of Larza's failed logic. So they get back in the house here, and after this funeral march, and she's looking at the wall, she's talking to alpha males, and she's talking between Dan and CT, and he's taking out all the other guys. You literally just got back from Ekin Sue's funeral. So how does that help your case here? Like, I feel like she's just trying too hard here, and
Yep.
she's been trying too hard this whole time, but she gets so pigeonholed into an idea, and she finds a reason, but then doesn't do her own. Like, even CT
Mhm.
said it. He's like, "Then why take out Ekin Sue?" She's like, "'Cause you
Mhm.
didn't need her." That's not what you just said. You just said
Yep.
we were taking out all the other guys because they were threats.
Right,
And
exactly. It goes against the logic that she, like, honestly was actually more accurate the first time around than the second time around. And also we started talking about the Gamers Bravo Alliance. This really played into it. And so let me just bring this up super quick because it comes into this whole
yeah.
situation where they're in the dining room. So the alliance that again, praise Janelle for clocking this to a T. It's Bravo versus Gamers. So Bravo is like Larsa, Phaedra, Tamra, MJ, Sheree. I keep saying Sheree, and I know it's Sheree, but because I hear it and I know it's
Yes.
Sheree, I read it and I read Sheree, and I'm like,
I mean,
God
we had the
damn
same
it!
Felicia thing, so.
Oh my God. The first couple of weeks, I was like banging my head on the desk. I was like, I'm sorry, Felicia. Now I look at Felicia and I call it Felicia. And I'm like, oh, God damn it. I'm never going to fix it. So, anyways, so that is Bravo. And then for Gamers, we have CT, Sandra, Dan, Parvati, and Janelle. I'm adding in Trishelle, though, because Trishelle is part of it, in my opinion.
And also, Sandra is getting in with
Yes.
the housewives, though.
And no, that's the big thing. So Sandra has been straddling the two alliances. So if we go back to the scene that Sarah just set for us, as Larsa is making all of these accusations, who is in the back of not even the room, just in the back of this little group, but Sandra. She's trusted Sandra. Ooh, my ring
But
light just
she
died.
shouldn't. But she shouldn't. So Larsa trusts Sandra, but Sandra hates Larsa.
I know. Well, and it's funny because Sandra trusts the housewives, but like of all the housewives she doesn't trust, it's Lars.
Yeah.
So it was just perfectly set up. And earlier in the episode, we did get from Sandra where she's like, look, I know I'm straddling these two alliances. I see I'm with Gamers and I see I'm with Bravo, but I'm just going to play the middle until it's time. And exactly the second after they exited that room, when they had the discussion about CT or Dan, who does she go run to? Dan. goes right to Dan. Kevin is there too. Kevin was just kind of there. I love him to pieces, but she like let him in on everything. It's like, okay, we gotta go in on Larsa. Was actually probably really important to have him as a number moving forward with that, gain some trust. So that was really good. But I just thought it was hilarious because he's just standing there and I'm like,
but like she said that and she like gave everybody a heads up, but
yep,
Larsa can't keep her fucking mouth shut.
nope.
And CT's walking down the hallway and
Oh my god.
what did she say to him? She's like,
I don't even remember
I'm worried about you,
specifically.
CT.
Yeah, like you have me worried. You have me something to that degree. Yes, you're probably closer than I was. I
Yeah,
can't
she's like, I'm
remember
worried about you,
verbatim.
CT. And he's like, what the fuck? But she just kept walking. He's like, what the fuck? But he had just like become privy to like what bullshit she was on.
I mean, she brought
So
it up. Yeah, she brought it up in the round table. It did not like nothing changed in between that moment and the round table. Everything kept going. Her and CT went back and forth. She even said like literally like I think you're a traitor 1000%. She called him the head of the snake. And was really playing into again that idea that like somebody who's a traitor is either an alpha male or targeting alpha males.
mhm.
The thing is, she's gone back and forth. She seems really certain every single time that she knows which one it is, and it's like,
And then
but you
Kevin
keep changing
jumps in.
your
He's like,
mind.
but I can't get behind that logic. Like that doesn't make sense to me. And she's like, why? Because it's your logic. Like because you're one of them. And he's
Actually,
just
that was
like,
MJ. That was MJ, and I was like, "Girlie, you didn't need to enter the chat. You didn't need to. You could have just stayed and let Larsa dig her hole." And like,
that was MJ.
yeah, I just rewatched today. MJ's the one that made that comment.
And where he said, like, I know I'm a faithful. You should know I'm a faithful
Yep.
too, because if I was a traitor, I would kill you because you annoy me.
Yes, that was to MJ because
Oh.
MJ was like, because MJ said, it would make sense because you're like, because you would think that way, because you'd be, and he's like, I'm insulted that you think I'm that insecure about myself. And I'm not gonna lie, that was kind of a mic drop because, like, I do
Like, I
actually
like
like
that he
that.
held his own in this. I
Yes.
really do. This was
And
a
also,
moment for him.
I mean, I feel like it really actually, like, I don't think we're not getting his true colors the entire
Right.
time, really. So, like, I was like, oh, golf clap. I
Yeah.
like that because
Yeah.
it was just I enjoy seeing men have real feelings with depth. So it makes me happy. Especially people who take some heat for not being the most intelligent, and I'm using air quotes if you can't see because like he takes a lot of heat. Like, and I joke, I mean, he is a little clueless when it comes to this game. He's not always quite there,
Right.
but like some people take it to another level when they criticize it. I'm like, whoa, I'm
You
not
know.
taking it there. So I actually really like this. This kind of showed that I think he's a little more in tune than people give him credit for too.
He held his own. I'll give him that. He held his own. I
Yes.
think that this was one of those roundtables where everybody but Larsa went into it knowing exactly how they were going to vote, and nothing that was said at the roundtable made any difference.
No, the only
Um,
other major drama was Parvati and Phaedra, which was beautiful and leads us into our turret, which is
right.
our to be continued. I'm loving this. So, like, we're pretty much just gonna end this on this is the beginning, and we had seen the seeds of this. It is CBS. It is Gamers versus Bravo hardcore moving forward after this. But it's
But
really
I'm gonna make an argument here because this is where I'm like, Phaedra, you need like what I now know about Phaedra, this is very on brand for her.
yes.
But not knowing, like
Driven
taking all of that out of it, that this is just I feel like this is just an overreaction on her part. I do feel that Parvati should have given and not blindsided Phaedra and given her a heads up that they were all going to go after Larsa, that the house wanted Larsa.
Right.
That as the traitors, they needed to have that, they needed to go in on that. I don't think Parvati stated it in a way that was directed at Phaedra. I think Phaedra's own guilt. I say that word lightly. It's not true guilt, but
No.
Phaedra's own self-awareness that she is a traitor made that feel more
Yeah.
personal than it is. It's kind of like when you have that person that you haven't talked to in a long time and they post one of those vague book statuses where like my true friends or something about like
you know
what I
and
mean?
I grew up with this, I totally know.
But then you read that and she's probably not talking about you, but the fact that it applies to you makes you feel very targeted.
Yep.
I feel like that is kind of where Phaedra's in this moment, where Parvati said a generic statement about how the housewives are all actresses. They are given scripts and that they could do this. And she was alluding to Larsa. Larsa is the ringleader. Larsa is the shot caller. The reason there's the most housewives and everything. But Phaedra took it as a personal dig at her. And I feel like that's only because Phaedra knows she's a traitor. Yeah. And she's already very self-conscious about Ekin-Su going out.
Yep.
Even though still no one is looking Phaedra's way.
No.
Alan could have come out and said, one of the traitors is absolutely a housewife. The whole house would have voted on who they would have thought, and Phaedra would not have a single vote to her name.
He probably could have come out and said Phaedra's a traitor, and everybody would have been like, no.
Yeah. So
probably not.
So the fact that she blew this up to what it was, I feel like was an overreaction in hindsight, but in the moment felt like a very just reaction.
I mean, it gave us incredible television. Sorry to cut you off. It was just like, it was so fucking entertaining.
But Phaedra held her own at that table, and she's like, "You're not going to do this. We're housewives. We are not killers."
Parvati,
and I loved it. I love her so fucking much. I love her. I want to see her. I don't want to see her backstabbed. I love the drama, but like, I love her so much.
I'm living for it. I wouldn't mind, just because like at this point, I'm not necessarily rooting for anybody. I'm usually so dead set on like, this is my person. I need this person to win. Like and it's like, I mean, maybe Maxim Chmerkovskiy was that, but he's gone. So
as far as a winner goes, like a personal preference, who I would want to win. Oh God. I mean, I would love to see Janelle win. I would love to see, I don't think she does, but I would love to see a Janelle win. I would, I think
she'd probably have to win alongside somebody, because they'd have to suss out one of the final traitors.
Yeah. But so as far as out of the traitors, any of them, I mean, here's the thing. I'm personally not a fan of Dan. I'm not a fan of Dan as like, we don't align in our belief system. We don't align, our personalities don't align. However, as a connoisseur of the art of Big Brother, I really enjoy watching him work. So I want to see him go far, because I want those moments. I want those Dan funeral moments,
Yes, of course.
And he has the capability, Parvati has the capability to give those moments to us. So for like gaming and strategic reasons, I want to see them go far. Janelle, I just fucking adore her.
Well, and I'd be remiss if we didn't discuss before we ended this episode. It's probably hilarious if people are listening and gotten this far. They're probably screaming at us that we haven't discussed this. I mean, Dan planted a lot of the seeds that created Phaedra versus Parvati. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
We talked about the top of the episode.
Right.
So they had the discussion with Parvati about Phaedra needing to go. And we probably, I think he's alluding to feeding the faithfuls here. And then we saw the Parvati Ekin-Su vote, which I don't think I don't think Parvati gave Ekin-Su the poison thinking this would make Phaedra look bad. But the fact that Phaedra brought it up at breakfast is giving them ammunition. Okay, well, that's true. We can work with that. And I feel like these are just planting all these seeds. Larsa gets voted out. She says she's a faithful. And we get to the turret. And this is where we got left on our cliffhanger, because holy shit, what a way to end an episode. Phaedra flips that hood off and she's like, what the fuck, Parvati? No, it's not exactly what she
Pretty
said,
close. Pretty
but
close.
pretty fucking close. But she's just like, basically like, WTF, bitch. Don't you do that shit again. Dan, you don't do that shit either. And she's like, this can't stand. I can't believe you did that. And she was livid. And Parvati and Dan are just looking at her like, what the fuck? Oh,
one of the things people brought up about that was like, and there's been, I think, a lot of debate is the wording she chose, because she was like, I want to play fair. And it's like, people are like, this isn't a fair game. It's a game. And it's like, I don't necessarily think that. I mean, I think she's just giving them a warning that if you don't play fair with me, I'm going to be just as unfair to you as you are to me. And like, I think people heard that and they were like, oh, she thinks this game has to be fair. I'm like, no, I think she's just, it's a warning shot. She's like, hey, you want to screw around? We'll screw around.
Like, I mean, I'm sorry. I've never watched Housewives, but I know enough now about Phaedra to know that, like, she would fucking bomb that place down. Like, she's chaotic as fuck. And she's quite famously known for being chaotic. So if she's like, fuck around and find out, you two, like, we're in this together or we're not, but like, you know,
better listen.
And I'm just saying, like, what I know now, like, they better fucking listen, or they better be slick as fuck. And my thing here is that I feel like we're going to get to a decision where they are going to use those cliques and they're going to have a decision to make. I don't think they're going to get Phaedra on board to go after anybody from Bravo. But I don't think that they're going to let another gamer go. So they're going to have to dip from that faithful pool.
So my question to you, really coming out of this, is then who do you think is really being staring down being murdered at the beginning of this episode?
Well, they have to all agree on somebody, and I feel like the only people that they could really agree on here is going to be like, you know, the faithful group, that clique right there, or maybe even Janelle, because they all three seem to be on board with not letting Janelle go very far. But I think that they could all agree on Janelle because they don't want Janelle to go very far. But I feel like having another roundtable where Janelle's been in drama, but no one is voting for her every week in roundtable that happens where no one's looking at Janelle is going to make Dan more and more nervous.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that that's somebody that they can all agree on quite possibly could be, we could see Janelle go home. If not, I think that they're all going to have to agree on a traitor at this point. Mm-hmm. I feel like Parvati and Dan are probably going to try to pitch a Bravo person only because, and I feel like they could. There is a way that they could. There's a way that they could say that, hey, I know that you think I led the charge on this, but the house is talking how Bravo hasn't been touched. Bravo hasn't been murdered at all. So if we want to like deter them from that, we're gonna need a Bravo murder.
And I think personally that MJ would be the right person to target because her conversation with Kevin really well, and the conversation also opened that she had with Kevin at the round table really opened it up because he was like, oh, like I actually like wrote a note specifically, like bolded it, and was like, when he said that he would go for her first, I was like, that's the door you need to find. If you make it through this round table and you need to pin something on somebody who is already going after Dan, it's this. They should use this opportunity to be like, look, MJ's the move, unless you want the traitors to be found out. And realistically, Phaedra may not necessarily care if Dan is found out. She might even be explicit about that if they pitch that. I wouldn't be surprised if they pitch somebody like an MJ and she's like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And people have asked like what would happen if they can't decide. And I think ultimately they have to stay there and it has to become unanimous. So I don't know how long they could stay there, but I don't know if they would make Phaedra budge.
I don't know. She was hot. So maybe I don't know how this plays out, but I feel like I can see paths for all of those scenarios. And God, it's just, I feel like if they can make it out of this, I just don't know the rules. I don't know the specifics. Obviously, Dan and Parvati can't come down and say like, hey, we know for a fact Phaedra is a traitor. So like there are rules. I don't know how. I think that they can say something along the lines of like when they get the discussion going with the gamers about which housewife it could be, they can say something like Phaedra's been really quiet. You know what? No one's glanced her way. She got very defensive at that last roundtable, and that's the most we've heard from her this whole time. Things like that. They could probably say and get away with saying that's probably the way I would go about it. Or you say something like, no, it's going to be somebody who's not necessarily a ringleader, but somebody who is very selective about when they speak up.
Right.
Plant those seeds where that she fits those puzzle pieces. I think that that's what we're going to see. If not next episode, then the episode after that. But I feel like the edit kind of alluded to and was kind of setting us up for this insurrection.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Well, with that, unless you have any other final thoughts, this is going to wrap up the episode of Wicked Unscripted. I'm going to leave it opening unless you're good. Should have just asked.
I want to talk about the social media. We teased that at the top a little bit.
Oh, I like totally forgot about that.
Yeah. So, Johnny Bananas has been wilding out on Twitter. Very upset with Dan. And people are in arms or surprised about this at all. Now, I follow Johnny Bananas, and this is not out of character for him at all.
No, not even remotely.
Actually, I heard a clip from, I believe it might have been Rob Sesternino. I think it was Puya. Puya was talking about this, and he was talking about like, it was Rob. Rob was talking about like, this is on brand for Johnny, but he also is established, like working on his reality competition reputation here.
Right.
Whereas like, don't screw me over in a game because I will literally never forget it. This is playing into House of Villains, playing into the challenge, playing in setting his reputation up in a way to where you got to really be ready for the smoke if you're going to take the shot. And I think that's smart. That's strategic to play. You're basically playing outside of the game by setting up. And for that, like he was on House of Villains. Like he's a villain.
Right.
Like I'm here for it. I will say this, you can absolutely see who is not the reality competition players via Twitter because Larsa cutting throats for Janelle and saying how Janelle's just jealous that she was getting more airtime. But you don't know nothing about Janelle because Janelle is not jealous of you. She's not worried about airtime over you. Like that's not.
It just felt like it felt very petty. I mean,
So
not even felt, it was very petty, but it felt, I don't know, it just like almost like she just didn't know who else to like. She needed somebody to blame, and it was just one of the easier people to go for. And it's like a lot of people tend to do that with Janelle because they have beef over how she handles a game.
Girls, let's be very clear. I said this last episode. Little girls like to go after Janelle. Insecure girls like to go after Janelle.
Well, and Parvati's been taking some heat from Ekin Sue. She was on Johnny Bananas podcast, and they were just trashing them. I mean, her rather. Sorry, saying them like I was talking about multiple people. No, I mean they were kind of. I think that's where my thought process was going. Was like, I mean, they didn't hold back on many people, but they were particularly like they just went in on Parvati. They were making fun of how she looked. They were like talking about like how bad she was acting. That was like one of the big things where I knew like we kind of like heard a little bit about how bad she was, like how bad her acting skills were. But like we really got to see that in like Ekin was just ripping her to shreds on the podcast, which is literally through the ringer. I was like, damn. Like I like that they kind of allowed it to be so raw, but they did not hold back.
Yeah, it's been wild. I mean, Trader streets are wild.
Yeah, Traitors streets I mean, they're really getting together like an alternate cast for House of Villains ultimately, right? So
Absolutely.
this is just like perfect, like, and also I think this is part of why House of Villains is having a hard time casting right now, because so many people they want to cast are under contract until 6 months after the end of Traitors.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, so that's 6 months after, I believe the finale is March 7th, and that's assuming they don't have a reunion show, which I'm assuming they're probably gonna do. So if the reunion show comes out sometime in March, I mean, it's not until September, and they're filming in February, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, a week away. A week away.
Yeah.
Like, the timing was not smart, and I do think there are lots of people they still could do, but, like, I feel like they're gonna kinda get robbed of this season of who they could have because of, like, they could have had, like, a CT, but CT is literally under contract, so they're like, unless they can somehow, like, weasel it into something, because like, now House of Villains has a contract with Peacock, and it's, like, airing on there. I don't know if they can maybe, like, kinda
What's
finagle
up?
that.
Yeah.
That would be nice maybe, but I'm not really putting any bets on it. I think it's probably through Studio Lambert and that they probably can't do something there, so we shall see
I
about that.
want to leave us on a question.
Yeah.
This is not Traitors related, it is House of Villains related, but I would be very interested if people could leave comments, especially like on our YouTube video. But, and I want to pose this question to you because it's such a hard question. Would you rather, you have to choose, would you rather have Big Brother Paul or Big Brother Raven on House of Villains?
Big Brother Paul, not even a question.
What?
Yeah.
People are so sick of seeing him. Like,
I
he's
understand,
anybody
but
but anybody but.
Raven doesn't have she's not nearly as notable. Like, I think the thing
She's
about
infamous in
yeah, but
our world.
I know in our world, but the thing is about House of Villains, they have to have a level of infamy outside of their realm too, because that's why, like, people like
Yeah, oh, well,
Tanisha
you're
and, like,
getting production deep with it. I'm
I
talking about
am getting production deep. You asked me my question, and I'm
you're
answering.
getting production deep.
No, that's that, but I mean, if I could just have my pick, I'd pick Raven. But I think ultimately, realistically, it's Paul. Like, Paul is hands down the person that they would be going with. It wouldn't even surprise me. I mean, I would be floored if they put Raven on the show, because like, I don't
He came
think.
to mind when thinking about villains who don't know they're villains or are on the show because they're infamous but don't want to be infamous. We had one of those this season, so that's why she came up, and I'm like, "Oh god," and then they're like, "But it's better than Paul," and I'm like, "Oh god," and it was just very much a Sophie's choice question, and so I'd be
Let me see
very
if I
interested to
can.
see people's reaction.
Let's see if I can find my list while I'm like on my fucking thing here. So I have been working, and I'm going to be putting together a TikTok for this, but I have put together a list if I can fucking find it. Jesus
I loved your
Christ.
tiers, by the way. I wanna post my tiers, my show tiers.
Yes. I just like, well, I came up with it when I was trying to explain that video, and I was like, the video I'm referencing is like, I talked about how like I'm not watching The Bachelor as much, and then I talked about like how I rank shows in tiers of like how when I watch them, and I think it's really cool. I never
That was fun.
realized that I thought about it like that until I put it together. I'm like, this is my hierarchy though, isn't it? So I'll be
Yeah,
putting together like that whole thing. That's my Traitors 2 cast. Where's my House of Villains?
it's
Oh,
okay.
did I just blow up my House of Villains cast? I did, apparently. Okay, well, I have,
Fine.
like, CT's on there, but, like, he's under contract. If anybody knows Andre from, 90 Day Fiancé, he is on my list for House of Villains because he
I
would
do
be
think that
perfect
there's a
shit.
deal to be made then, since House of Villains is gonna be airing on Peacock, there's gotta be some kind of connections there too, where Peacock has a vested interest in season 2 of House of Villains, so they might allow for that contract too. So we could be
Especially if Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to,
I was
cut you off.
saying we could be looking at someone from this Traitors cast to transition into House of Villains season
I mean,
2.
that could be the only way that they are able to do it is like,
Yeah.
"Hey, like, we are both through Peacock." Um E's not going to give it up, obviously. I was like thinking about maybe if it transitions, but no way. It was big. It was E's biggest premiere in forever. So absolutely the fuck not. The fuck not.
Yeah.
But I wonder what loopholes could happen. I hope there are some loopholes that they can kind of like maneuver through for that, especially if maybe they could finally air it simultaneously on Peacock. You know, that would be really, really huge if they could like get that going. Like if E can give that up to Peacock and be like, hey, we run it on E and we run it on Peacock at the same time, or it like comes out on Peacock like immediately after the West Coast airs, kind of like how they do with Big Brother Survivor and whatnot, that kind of stuff. They could do something like that, and they could have a really good cast. But I worry that Traitors season 2 is going to hinder that. So much so that I just realized that's why I blew up my list, because I was like, oh, every person that I had on this list is on the Traitors.
I can absolutely see someone from this cast being on the next season of House of Villains.
I need CT on it so badly. I mean, I really, really do. We'll do some more House of Villains talk, both on TikTok and on here too.
Yeah.
It's really cool. House of Villains is finally going to be starting to air. I think it's like mid-February on Peacock, which it's just so great now that more people can have access to it, because you could only access it with cable.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been missing out. So, or not just with cable, but like if you don't have access to cable streaming, you missed out. So it'll be fun, and I'm excited for what that brings. And then also Traitors. And the big news of the week too is Traitors season 3's already been renewed. We've already we already have renewal for the Traitors. Season 3 is coming. I will certainly. I actually just finished my list for my dream cast, and I had so many people I wanted. I now have full
living
list
in the
for.
future, girl.
I have I know, but I live for it. But like, there are so many people I want on that cast that I had to go and make separate lists for almost every show and be like, okay, I just got to do separate. Just get ready for a wave of Traitors content. But if you guys also, if like, please, like Sarah mentioned, like totally feel free to comment some takes, like especially if you want to let us know who you would like to see on Traitors season 3. That would be really fun too, because especially since we're talking Traitors, like there's a lot of really great stuff coming up reality television wise, especially watching our favorite shows blend. It's the best. Anything else before I actually wrap up this time? I did not need to do it prematurely.
This is not Traitors really, but I want to give a quick shout out to Zach, Zactivus. I actually put this interview was so good that I added it to my link tree. So my link tree in my TikTok bio and Twitter bio, you just the very first link, there's this interview. He did an incredible interview with Mama Fee. And I just gotta say it was very intimate and deep. They did talk religion in the beginning, which typically like 99.9% of the time would be a turnoff to me, like just because of my own religious trauma and the tonality of the way those, like, I cannot watch Julie's show. I can't do it.
I understand. I understand why.
It's triggering to me. And this was not that. It actually was it was very I was able to be very self-reflective by some of the questions that were asked, and the discussions that were had. And then, of course, he talked Big Brother. She was very articulate in the way that she talked about her current relationships with BB25 cast members without slamming anyone in particular. She talks her personal life, she talks military experience, things that we didn't really get to. And I feel like with post-season interviews of these house guests, we get a lot of rinse and repeat things that we either already knew about them for their live feeds, or things that we saw. They just want to rehash drama that we saw in the house. And this interview is not that. It's that if you were a fan of Mama Fee, this interview is great to watch. It just gives you like things that you didn't know about her. And I was very impressed. I want to go back and rewatch it again because it was just so good. And that's why I'm just kind of like spreading the word on it, because he is one of the smaller creators for in our TikTok space, but he is, I'm sorry, way more talented than me or you. Like his videos, the editing, his interview skills were some of the best I've ever seen, if not the best in this space that I've ever seen. So I was just completely floored, and I want nothing but success for him, and he deserves it. So I'm encouraging everybody to go and check out that video.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is Activist again.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't checked it out myself, but I'm really looking forward to it. You were just telling me about it just as we jumped on, so I'm really, really looking forward to checking it out. So with that wraps up this episode of Wicked Unscripted. If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. We're also regularly posting on our TikTok accounts, as we kind of just mentioned. I am found at It's Abigail Adams. Sarah can be found at Sarah Talks Big Brother, and you can also find the podcast at Wicked Unscripted. And then if you want to find us on, I almost said Instagram. I don't know why. If you can find, but especially Twitter, which is where we, especially when episodes are just dropping or airing live, we will offer live commentary. We'll also just kind of interact with stories throughout the week and whatnot. So you can find me there also at It's Abigail Adams, but you can find her there. You can search Sarah Talks Big Brother. It'll come up, but it's under Super Sarah. So you'll find it there. But if you want to ask us a question, share your thoughts, or leave us a tip, email the podcast at wickedunscriptedpod@gmail.com for more. We are always looking for fresh and diverse voices to join the conversation. And with that, we will see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Bye.